Welcome to Stories and Innovations in ALS, episode number 14, Modality.a.i, self-driven audiovisual assessments for ALS. My name is Lisa Deegan, and I'm joined today with McFinn. We are storytellers who've both been affected by ALS. Our mission is to share the stories of those affected by ALS and the efforts of those who are investigating and innovating to find a cure for this devastating disease. We're part of an organization called EverythingALS.org, whose mission is care to cure with the ultimate goal of accelerating treatments for ALS. Today, we are so excited to have the opportunity to talk with David Suendermann-Oeft, who is the founder and CEO at Modality.a.i. Modality's developed a conversational multimodal AI system that produces accurate metrics of facial and speech behaviors that are predictive of diseases like ALS. Modality is paving the way for more efficient, effective, and less costly clinical trials. David, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to learn more about you and Modality.ai.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Welcome. Let's get right to it. So, David, how did Modality come about, and what was your motivation for this platform?
Yeah, myself and my team, we have a background actually in artificial intelligence and machine learning and dialogue systems, and also in high stakes assessments. And we've been actually working at institutions such as Educational Testing Service on assessing language learning, as well as the proficiency of speakers in the educational sector. And that's something which is important, of course, for foreign students, for example, to learn and express themselves when they come to the United States to study. But it is not something which is life-threatening. And we believed, and that was in 2018, we believed that the technology, as well as the skills and the training and expertise of the team, and myself specifically, are so much more important to be applied to life-threatening diseases and the assessment of ALS and other neurodegenerative diseases where we can really make a difference. And that is why we stepped out of ETS at that time, incorporated Modality, and really went to the clinical sector, working with a number of very well-known institutions in this area, like MGH, UCSF, Purdue, New York University, to really get into the clinical space and make a difference.
Wow. Awesome. So we also want to understand, and you'll have to explain in a non-technical ways for those listening that, just so everybody can understand, how did you come up with the idea of having 3 different measurements, which are speech, facial gestures, and limb movement? And what is that advantage? Again, not getting too technical. And then I'd love to hear how you got connected with Indu.
Absolutely. Well, it's actually something when you speak to your friend or your family and you want to know how they're doing, either emotionally or neurologically also. For example, in conditions like ALS, it's very obvious when you speak to patients, it's very obvious how they're doing by actually speaking to them, hearing how they're speaking, and also watching how they're behaving. So this is something that you do as a family member and friend, but that's also how currently assessments and interviews, clinical interviews, are being conducted by physicians and by speech pathologists. And so it is a natural continuation of that thought that makes you think of an artificial intelligence that actually takes over that sort of assessment and makes it in a self-driven and scalable fashion. And that's basically what we did. We created at Modality the virtual assistant Tina that is interviewing patients and basically conducting the same sort of questions and same sort of protocol exercises with the patients while we are listening to how patients are responding and watching how they're behaving through video camera as well as microphones. And thereby, gathering information from the speech signal, from what they say, as well as how their facial movements convey the progression, for example, of the disease.
Can you give examples of what it's picking up? What types of things when we talk about facial gestures or within the speech? What are some of the things? I mean, I know they're probably obvious to us, but for maybe somebody listening
Absolutely. Like in ALS, for example, it is well known that the speed with which you speak is slowing down over time when you're affected by what's called the Barber function problems. So that basically, as the disease progresses, you're speaking slower and slower. And also your breathing, of course, is affected. So you cannot hold your breath anymore as long as a healthy person can. So these are things that you can pick up easily from the signals we're measuring. The same is true with your facial muscles and other muscles in the body that are affected. So we can measure, for example, things like the velocity with which you move your jaw or other facial muscles that are picked up by our computer vision algorithms and reveal directly how you're doing.
Wow, awesome.
That's clear.
What's your position, David? And is there something that you are, is there a main goal? So your position and your main goal.
Absolutely. My position in the company is I'm the founder, CEO, and president of a company. I have co-founders, so I'm not the only one. We have a number of people, CTO, chief science officer, and chief business officer in the company who are together in the leadership team. The goal of the company is to create a neurological lab test for ALS and also for other diseases such as Parkinson's disease and also psychiatric diseases such as depression, schizophrenia. There's a whole lot of diseases in these areas that can benefit from what we're doing, and we want to provide a test that can be administered in a remote fashion, in a scalable fashion, in a self-administered fashion, in an accurate, unbiased fashion. So that's what we want to do.
Wow. Hey, one little thing to jump back just a little bit. So how did you find Navarre?
Navarre was a reference through one of our research partners, John Weng, who is a professor at the University of Texas at Austin. He has been working with us on ALS since 2018. And he was approached by Indu to understand what sort of speech assessment mechanisms exist in the field. And he referred us directly to Indu. And it was really the birth of a very, very fruitful relationship because we got together already in the summer of 2020, which was the origination of a large scale speech study which we then conducted together with EverythingALS, which has been very successful and resulting in several publications by now and a lot of publicity.
Well, I just posted on some press releases and we were in ALS news today. So I'm so glad you guys met. Okay, so what do you work with other diseases besides ALS? You mentioned depression, schizophrenia, Parkinson's. Maybe there's some others you might want to mention. And why did you decide to focus on ALS?
Yes, we're working on the diseases that you mentioned. We're also working on autism, and we have a few trials and clinics that are going even in other directions, like, for example, laryngeal cancer. That's a trial that is starting at the UT Austin right now. We're also working on Lyme disease. So there's a multitude of different things. We are going into stroke as well as Alzheimer's at some point as well. So there's pilots that are planned. So there's a diverse area of diseases that can benefit from the assessment, and also the fact that we are measuring speech, facial, but also other things that can be picked up by computer vision. For example, in Parkinson's, we are looking at finger tapping and tremor, things like that, which is why this technology is very much suitable for other neurodegenerative and psychiatric conditions.
Have you found one thing that's really successful so far?
Of course, the ALS collaboration is very successful. Another one which I want to point out is our work with the New York University and the Nathan Klein Institute and the Manhattan Psychiatric Center on schizophrenia, specifically negative symptoms on schizophrenia. And these are people who are highly mentally ill and are normally not interacting with humans very much. And so the assessment of their conditions is very complicated, even for humans to be done. And now the interaction with modality actually enables them to actually express themselves, because they are not suffering from any judgment or any other human confidence issues that they normally are facing. And so we have run a very successful trial with this institution, where every single of the patients that has been exposed to our system has successfully completed the tasks. And we have found after just a few months, very strong signals pointing out the negative symptoms and other signals that are so important for the development of medications and therapies in this area, where there are no therapies today.
Great.
So I want to hear, what the roadblocks and challenges in this work are for you, but I also want to understand, kind of going back, you had mentioned test kits. I want to know what that looks like when you say a test kit for all these different diseases. I'm just curious.
Yeah, the test kit looks relatively straightforward. So what you do normally to be tested with our system is you log on in the web browser to our system, and you're engaged with Tina directly through the web browser, whether it is on a laptop, on a smartphone or iPad. And you go through this conversational test, maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for 15, depending on the disease area. And the output of this is an assessment, almost like a blood test or neurological test, that measures in certain categories and units how you're performing. And so this is something that, for example, your physician can interpret, or when it is being used by pharmaceutical companies, it can be used as a so-called biomarker that determines whether the drug is actually making a difference compared to the control group.
Okay.
So that's how the test kit works.
Okay, so because that's our big thing, is we say we're uncovering biomarkers that help with an earlier diagnosis and a more accurate prognosis or course of the disease. So test kit that's kind of what you mean then when you talk, because I wasn't sure if there was like a kit you're actually trying to get out there that people buy, or
no, that's a very good question. We are not distributing hardware.
Yeah.
You are actually using your own hardware. You're using your own computer, your own smartphone with Modality. Yeah. And so you just log on to our website, and then you conduct the test. It is a completely virtual software solution, cloud solution.
Yeah. And I have a really important question. Why did you change the avatar from Nina to Tina? I'm teasing that it's so important, but.
Tina stands for the Interactive Neurological Assessment.
Oh, I like that.
Exactly. So it expresses our brand, and it was actually a brand concern. And now we have actually the final name that is going to be used into the future.
Oh, that's great. I just had to ask. So,
David, what kind of competition do you have?
Our direct competitors are companies that do speech assessments. There's, for example, Oral Analytics or Winterlight Labs that are focusing on certain disease areas. For example, Oral Analytics does have ALS-based assessments. Winterlight Labs is focusing on Alzheimer's, for example. They do predominantly speech assessments on say, monologic speech. What they don't have, and that's basically what we are so proud about, is the use of a virtual assistant, of course, Tina, who is like a virtual person who is guiding you through, and with which the patients actually develop a relationship, as we have seen many, many times. Mm-hmm. And what they don't have, of course, is the multiple modalities. Not only speech, but we look at computer vision, we look at finger movements, and we will add more facial movements. Of course, we will add more modalities into the future.
Thank you.
So what are you going to need to take this project to the next level? And if there's any roadblocks that are kind of holding you back from getting there, if you want to share any of that.
Of course, the ultimate customers of the technology there's two markets predominantly. We have pharmaceutical industry, as you mentioned before, that can exploit and use this technology as biomarkers to actually prove that their drugs are working. And for this specific customer segment, they are relatively conservative in adopting new technologies. It often, the larger the company, big pharma specifically, the adoption and acceptance of these technologies takes quite some time. So the sales cycles are long, and often there's also some requirement around regulatory clearance. Our other customer segment that is hospitals and clinics that can use Modality for monitoring, for example, remote monitoring of their patients. For this, we will need FDA clearance so that we can market our technology to be safe as well as effective. And that is something that we are undergoing right now.
Yeah.
And these are basically the things that we're focusing on right now and that are in the way of expanding aggressively at the current moment.
Yeah, it's a much needed new generation of biomarkers that the FDA can use for validation and helping to see if treatments are working, right?
Exactly right.
And there's so many, there's so many different ways we can measure these things. So it's great. I love what you guys are doing, and we're so happy to be partnering with you.
Do you have any relationship with Microsoft, or are they analyzing your information?
We don't have a direct relationship with Microsoft at the current moment. So the stack and the data we're collecting is proprietary, except for, of course, for EverythingALS. We are collecting data that EverythingALS is distributing with other research partners.
Okay.
So who is going to take this after? What's the next step when you're done?
That depends on who the end user is. If the end user is a pharma company, then we provide to them the raw measurements. So for example, we would provide to them the velocity measure of your jaw. So how fast does the patient move their jaw? And this is being measured over time for a large cohort of patients. And the pharma company will then compare how the patients who take the medication are behaving differently from those who are taking the placebo, and will thereby be able to measure the differences in what the drug actually affects.
So do you consider that the goal of the pharmaceutical companies is data?
Exactly right. So it's data, and it is the specific measurements and endpoints that we provide, endpoints and biomarkers that we provide. Are they planning on making pharmaceuticals to go along with this? That is another thing that we have come across, that certain companies, they are looking at combining their drugs with a so-called companion diagnostics solution. Look, like for example, if you are a Parkinson's patient and you are taking a certain medication, you want to know whether this medication improves, whether the dosage needs to be adjusted. Modality can provide solutions to this in that when you're regularly being assessed through Modality, you can actually see whether the condition improves and to which degree it improves. And the physician, the responsible physician, can remotely identify whether certain changes to your medication needs to be done. So wow. that is a scenario for both the clinical usage as remote patient monitoring solution, as well as a companion diagnostic solution for pharmaceutical industry.
And with the data, it's also open data, right? Sharing with others to conduct research with our findings. And I also want to know, are you finding, which I know you are, but if you want to talk about finding maybe subgroups, because as we all know, this is a heterogeneous disease. It takes on many paths. You get it different ways, different progression. You must be, with whatever you're allowed to discuss, if you want to share any findings or new things that you didn't know before that so far Modality is helping to discover.
Yeah, very happy to comment on this. So the first part of your question was about data sharing.
Yes.
And with EverythingALS, the relationship we have allows EverythingALS to share the data with their research partners, whether it's industrial research partners or academic research partners, which we are very happy about, because that really is going to drive the community to work together on research and expedite finding the right markers in that host of data. We have collected so much data by now with hundreds and hundreds of patients, longitudinal. They're being assessed every single week. Gigabytes of data. There's an ocean, and it's very rich. And so the more people can work together with us on this, the better. We have now relationships already with MIT, with MGH, with IBM. All of us are working together on this. UT, Texas, and so about exciting findings. We have submitted and have been accepted a paper very recently to the MND-ALS symposium, which is, I think, one of the most influential ALS symposia in the world. And that was specifically around different subgroups, as you mentioned, groups that are fast progressors, medium speed progressors, and slow progressors, and their relationship with the sort of biomarkers that we can measure through speech and vision. And so this is brand new information that is coming out and is going to be published in December, and is a collaborative work with all these institutions I was mentioning. So we are very proud of being able to exploit that sort of longitudinal collection that EverythingALS is doing with us, and actually turning this around into scientific insights so quickly that can not only be used for the scientific community, but can really be turned around into tangible products that pharmaceutical industry can use, and that the FDA can also use to render approval at the end of the day for these biomarkers.
Well, we can't wait till December when we're able to talk about what you guys are seeing and coming up with. It's so promising.
Absolutely. Actually, last week was Interspeech, the world's largest speech technology conference, and we were featured there with 2 publications. One of them was actually an ALS publication where we already showed early results of the EverythingALS collaboration, and showed that a large variety of the speech and facial measures actually show signal and are correlated with the ALS-FRS-R score, and can also be used for eventual classification and diagnosis. So early signals are there, and they are publicly available now for the community to read.
Wow. Would you say that that's the top, the tip, that's the height that you made so far?
That is absolutely one of the most successful stories I can share, specifically the speed with which we were able to work together with EverythingALS. I think your organization, as well as your leadership, Indu Navar, and everyone on the team is so collaborative, and has been a tremendous partnership for us to actually, in the very same mindset. You're working as very much as a startup as we do, and so that resonates very well, and has really resulted in it taking only 6 months from the origination of the project till a publication was actually completed and submitted for peer review and accepted as at the most prestigious speech technology conference in the world.
Yeah, this is completely different from everybody working in their own islands. It's taking 10 years to even come up with any study, or they're still working on mice, or this is
exactly right.
This is lightning speed, real time, real results. We're so excited to be a part of it. And I think the biggest thing is, how can we help you? We're trying to get people to join our speech study. So let us know how else we can help you with that.
Of course, you have been tremendously helpful already over the past year. And so where would we be if you wouldn't have supported us in this endeavor? So I want to express my personal gratitude for this opportunity. And of course, we want to expand this further, right? The more patients can be part of the study, the better, because then we can stratify, we can look into specific subgroups, as we had previously mentioned. And I also mentioned that actually expansion in potentially other disease areas, related disease areas, would be very interesting as well, because I believe that a lot of the learnings that we produce here with EverythingALS can be translated to other rare diseases, but maybe also not so rare diseases such as Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Is there a disease that you think is really close to ALS? What's the closest disease that mimics ALS?
I don't want to comment on what's the closest disease mimicking ALS, but something that we will be focusing on is really Parkinson's disease, because it is a neurodegenerative disease. A lot of the measurements that we are doing with ALS can actually be done there as well, and have shown promising signals. We're working with Purdue University on running IRB-approved trials over there, and have also been publishing on Parkinson's already. So I believe this is an area where expansion would be fantastic.
What's next for you? Are you going to just stay focusing on this, or do you have another spin-off coming?
No spin-off. This is the focus. We have just received our 2021 venture capital financing round. So we are well financed. We have a larger group of R&D team members and business development team members. We're really trying to expand. What's on the table right now for us is FDA approval. So that's something which we're pursuing. And of course, we want to get into the pharmaceutical industry, really making a difference for them to expedite the development of cures. So that's at the end of the day what we all want, right? For ALS, there's no cure. And the more we can work together with the ecosystem of pharmaceutical companies to help them, the better.
Yep, and that's EverythingALS's goal, is to accelerate treatments at the end of the day. That's whatever we can do to help with that. So we're so happy to be on the ride with you guys to help make this happen for ALS. I lost my brother to the disease, and he was my younger brother. So, you know, we don't want to have to, the reason we do what we do is we don't want to see other people have to go through what we did. So we're very thankful of people like you guys innovating in this space and really looking to have better patient outcomes at the end of the day. So we thank you.
David, how many more people do you think we need to bring in?
Well, the goal for this study is 1,000. So there's 380 or so more which we need to bring in.
Yeah,
and
we're working on it.
Can you tell me the difference in why you need these numbers?
Absolutely. That has something to do with the statistical significance of the results we can show. So when you look at our papers, the original paper that was presented last week in Interspeech, for example, looked at less than 200 patients that we had at that time. And that means that you cannot speak about certain measurements or certain correlations yet. And so certain findings are just not visible if you do this. And so the more patients you have, the better you can identify whether certain measures are working, for whom they're working, and also break down things by certain demographic groups, for example, fast progressors, slow progressors, all these research questions that you want to answer.
Do you see anybody else on the planet doing what you're doing? Are we ahead of the game of everybody, or?
We are absolutely ahead of the game of everybody, specifically in ALS. We are not aware of anyone who is, for example, using virtual assistants to collect that sort of information. We can scale arbitrarily. We have extraordinary user response. So the ALS community is so helpful. We have every month, together with you, of course, the patient feedback rounds. And we are collecting a lot of really actionable information to improve the system, to make it more robust, more user-friendly all the time.
Wow.
And I have to say, I participate, and given that my brother has had ALS, I really believe in what you guys are doing, and I'm so afraid I'm going to get flagged for I'm serious that I'm like, okay, I got to do it. Oh, maybe I'm busy.
No worries. You're not going to be flagged. There's no diagnosis happening at the moment. We're just measuring how fast you speak, how many pauses you make, and so on. So there's no such thing like you're going to be flagged.
Well, that's good to know.
I look forward every week to doing my session. And when I forget, sometimes I get a little reminder and I write him back a note. Thank you so much. Because it's really, it empowers me to do that. It makes me feel like I am really contributing. I contribute in a lot of ways, but this is like pinpoint laser. Come on, people. If we just put it together, 1,000 people, we will be so powerful, and we're almost there. So
we will be so powerful. This study is one of a kind. There's never been a study that large in ALS. What we're doing here is the first ever, and so I really thank you so much for being part of this study also as controls. We want controls. We want patients. Everyone makes a difference because we need controls in order to be able to show what the specific characteristics of ALS are, and we need to match them with the ALS patients. So everyone is important in this game.
Yeah, and I must say it's super user friendly. It's easy. It really only takes, depending on how some people talk slower, but 10, maybe 15, 5 to 15 minutes, maybe a week. 18 and over, you have to live in the US. All you need is a computer, laptop, tablet, smartphone. It's eye gaze compatible. It's really, a lot of people that are actually doing this study are saying, gee, I feel like my speech is improving because I'm practicing all the time. So I think there's really so many benefits. Not only are we collecting significant, amounts of data that's going to be beneficial and hopefully lead to treatments, but also keeping people speaking and helping to keep their voices strong. And I think that's an important point to mention as well. But it is very easy and anybody can sign up. You just have to be 18 and over. So
absolutely. And there's the other benefit of the patient dashboard that is forthcoming.
Yes.
As well, yes. You will be able to see the results and your own recordings, and also over time the progression according to all sorts of factors. So it's a good monitoring instrument also for the participants to actually see how their journey is evolving, and also to share that data potentially with their physicians as well.
Yes. Oh, thank you for bringing that up, because that is huge to have that dashboard for people to go in and have all of their data put in one place and to be able to share it with a physician is a game changer. So thank you for bringing that up. That's another benefit. So it's a win-win
aspect to mention, because when you look at typical research studies, how they are carried out, they're one way. They're normally, okay, we want something from you. We get your data. We will never tell you what actually happens in the black box. There's papers being published, but they're so far away from the actual participant. Here we really try to close the loop, really bring back benefits and value to the actual participants as much as possible. So
they're empowered. They're empowered, right? They're participating. They're receiving something from it as well. Like they could see track their progress. So for the results. So yeah, no, it's awesome. So
everybody who is working, not working, everybody who is joining us to make this happen in our speech project is a hero. And each person brings a piece of the puzzle. And that's why we need all those people to come together. It's one by one until we get the answer.
Yeah.
So, David, I am so proud to be associated with you and your company. We are a force to be reckoned with. ALS, watch out, because you're going to be out the door before long. We're going to discover your source and we're going to cut it. So
I like that.
I just want to say thank you to everybody, because these little podcasts make such a difference. They touch, we have no idea who they're going to touch. So we've got another one to send out to the whole planet. David, this is a whole planet endeavor. And that just makes me feel so planetary helpful.
I want to thank you both very much for the really great experience in the interview, Lisa and McFinn. It was a pleasure having that interview with you, and looking forward to seeing you soon at the next meeting.
All right.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, David.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in our journey of exploration and digging deep into the souls of those affected by ALS and those working tirelessly to help put an end to this devastating disease. Your stories and work matter so much to us and to so many. Keep sharing and continuing to help further the research in ALS so we don't have to see another person suffer. Are you a researcher, neurologist, pharma, or biotech company working in the ALS space? If so, we would love to hear from you. For more information, please visit EverythingALS.org, or you can contact us at info@EverythingALS.org. Thank you.